My name is Odessa Reed, and I learned early that food can carry memories the way photographs do, only heavier. Because you don't just see a memory when you taste something, you feel it settle into your chest. I was 29 that summer, standing in the thick heat of New Orleans, when the city smells like sugar, oil, and history all at once. The annual Crescent City Food Festival had turned the riverfront into a living kitchen, steam rising from pots, music pulsing through the streets, laughter bouncing off brick walls. This festival was supposed to be my quiet win. I didn't have a booth. I didn't have a banner. But I had been cooking privately for months, testing recipes late at night in my shotgun apartment, writing everything down in a battered notebook my grandmother once owned. Those recipes were my childhood. Every smudge of grease on the pages meant something. My Aunt Lorraine had taught me how to stir a roux when I was 8, standing on a milk crate, my arm aching, my wrist burning. She'd always said, "Slow down, Odessa. Good food don't like to be rushed." That's what made the betrayal hurt the way it did. I found out by accident. I was walking past the main stage when I saw her name printed in gold letters on a massive banner. Lorraine Baptiste, signing her best-selling cookbook. People crowded around her table. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted, "Your recipes taste like home." I smiled at first. Pride is a reflex when you see families succeed. Then I saw the cover. My hands went cold. The title was something sweet and nostalgic. But it wasn't the title that froze me. It was the subtitle. Stories and recipes passed down through generations. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer, heart pounding, and flipped open a copy. The first recipe I saw was my shrimp and okra stew. Not inspired by it, not similar. It was mine. The exact measurements. The trick with the lemon peel. The note about adding thyme last so it didn't turn bitter. Even the story was mine. She wrote about a little girl learning to cook beside her grandmother after her parents died. About standing on a milk crate. About burning her wrist. That wasn't Lorraine. That was me. I couldn't breathe. Page after page, it kept happening. My cornbread, my pralines, my notes about cooking through grief. My words softened and polished, but unmistakably stolen. My childhood wasn't just remembered, it was repackaged. "Odessa?" Lorraine's voice cut through the noise. She looked genuinely surprised to see me. That hurt almost as much as the theft. "Baby," she said, standing up. "You came." I stared at her, the book shaking in my hands. "You used my recipes," I said quietly. Her smile stiffened, just a fraction. "Oh, honey," she laughed, lowering her voice. "They're family recipes." "No," I said. "They're mine." She leaned closer, her perfume thick and sweet. "Don't do this here." That sentence told me everything. Later, she cornered me behind the stage, away from cameras and fans. "You were never going to publish anything," she said sharply. "I gave those recipes a life." "They already had a life," I said. "With me." She crossed her arms. "You should be grateful." That word split something open inside my chest. Grateful. For losing credit. For having my memories rewritten. For watching someone else profit from the hardest years of my life. I went home that night and didn't cook. I sat on the floor, surrounded by my notebooks, and felt hollow. Every recipe suddenly felt exposed. Every memory felt unsafe. But as I stared at the grease-stained pages, something else crept in beneath the hurt. Clarity. I still had the videos, the late-night recordings, the timestamps, the mess-ups. The evolution of every dish, start to finish. And suddenly, I realized Lorraine hadn't stolen my future. She'd just lit a fire under it. My phone buzzed. A message from a local food journalist. "Heard you might have something to say about Lorraine's cookbook. Call me." I looked at my notebook, then at my empty kitchen. And for the first time since the festival, I smiled. Because if Lorraine wanted to tell my story, I was about to show the world how it was really cooked. I didn't call the journalist back right away. I let the phone sit on the counter while I cleaned my kitchen. Slowly, deliberately, like I was reclaiming the space. every surface I wiped felt like a quiet promise to myself. That night, I opened my laptop and watched my old videos. There I was, 3 years earlier, hair tied up with a fraying ribbon, flour dusting my cheeks. I talked to the camera like it was a friend. "Okay," I said in one clip, laughing. "This batch is wrong, way too salty. We're starting over." I watched myself fail, adjust, learn. Those videos weren't just proof. They were a timeline of my life. I found the date stamps, the raw footage, the recipe drafts saved under file names like okra was test, final, final 2. And suddenly, the anger sharpened into something cleaner. Strategy. The next morning, I met Caleb Moreau, the food journalist, at a cafe off Magazine Street. He was younger than I expected, calm, eyes that noticed details. "I want to be clear," he said, pressing record. "This isn't about a family feud. It's about authorship." I nodded. "I didn't lose recipes," I said. "I lost my voice." I showed him everything. The notebooks, the videos, the side-by-side comparisons with Lorraine's book. Caleb went quiet. Finally, he said, "This isn't inspiration. This is replication." The article went live 2 days later. It didn't accuse, it documented. And documentation is dangerous. By noon, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Some messages were gentle. "I'm so sorry. You deserve credit." Others weren't. My cousin texted, "Why are you doing this to Aunt Lorraine?" I didn't reply. Lorraine called that evening. I watched her name light up my screen and let it ring. Then she left a voicemail. "Odessa," she said, voice tight. "You're embarrassing the family." I deleted it without listening again. But embarrassment wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when her publisher released a statement. The cookbook reflects shared family traditions. No wrongdoing has occurred. Shared. That word again. I sat on my floor, back against the fridge, and laughed. It wasn't funny. It was absurd. That night, an idea began to form. Quiet at first. Not revenge. Correction. If Lorraine wanted to sell a story of heritage, then I would show people what living heritage tasted like. I called Marisol, my old roommate who worked in events. "Hypothetically," I said, "how fast could you help me open a pop-up restaurant?" She laughed, then paused. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious." The plan was reckless. No investors, no sponsors, just savings, favors, and faith. We found a vacant storefront 2 blocks from the festival's main drag. A narrow space with cracked tiles and a temperamental stove. Perfect. I named it Milk Crate, because that's where it all started. As word spread, obstacles followed. The health inspector flagged my permit twice. A supplier cancelled last minute. And then the email came, from Lorraine's publisher. A cease and desist regarding intellectual property misuse. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. They were accusing me of stealing my own food. For a moment, fear won. I imagined losing everything. The pop-up, my savings, my name. Then I remembered something my grandmother used to say. "If they're scared, it means you're close." I forwarded the email to Caleb. Then I kept cooking. Opening night arrived with rain. Thick, southern rain that soaked through shoes and turned streets glossy. I stood behind the counter, apron tight around my waist, listening to the storm and my heartbeat sinking with it. No one came for the first 20 minutes. Then one person. Then two. Then a line. Someone recognized me from the article. "Are you Odessa?" a woman asked. "I want to taste the real thing." By the time Lorraine's official book launch started across town, my kitchen was on fire. Not literally, but close. Plates flew. Orders stacked. Laughter spilled out onto the sidewalk. Someone filmed everything. I didn't know yet that those videos would change everything. I only knew one thing. Lorraine had the spotlight. But I had the truth. And New Orleans was hungry. I didn't sleep that night. Even after we locked the doors of Milk Crate, even after the last dish was washed and the floor was mopped, my body stayed wired. Adrenaline clung to me like sweat. I sat alone in the dark kitchen, scrolling through my phone. The videos from opening night were everywhere. Short clips at first. Shaky footage of plates being passed over the counter, steam rising, people laughing, then longer ones. Someone had filmed me plating shrimp and okra, my hands steady, my face focused. The caption read, "This is Odessa. These are her recipes." By morning, the video had 100,000 views. By noon, Lorraine's name was trending right next to mine. The internet, I learned quickly, doesn't like uncertainty. It likes sides. And suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Some defended Lorraine. Family recipes belong to everyone. She gave them a platform. Others were angrier. Credit matters. You don't steal someone's story. I tried not to read too much. But when you've spent years being unseen, it's hard to look away when the world finally looks back. At noon, Caleb texted me. Publishers are panicking. Lorraine cancelled her afternoon signing. I stared at the message. Cancelled. For the first time, the power dynamic shifted, but victory didn't feel the way I expected. Instead of relief, I felt grief, because Lorraine hadn't just taken my work. She'd taken the version of her I thought I knew. That afternoon, she showed up at Milk Crate. No cameras, no fans, just her, standing in the doorway, raincoat folded over her arm. The room went quiet. Marisol looked at me wide-eyed. "I'll handle it," I said. Lorraine's eyes flicked around the space. The open kitchen, the handwritten menu, the line out the door. "So," she said softly, "you really did this?" "Yes," I said, "I did." She swallowed. "You didn't have to destroy me," she said. That word, destroy, hit harder than I expected. "I didn't destroy you," I said. I told the truth. She stepped closer. "I raised you," she said. "I fed you. I taught you. And I loved you," I said. "That's why this hurts." For a moment, she looked old, not powerful, not celebrated, just tired. "I thought," she said slowly, "that if I told it well enough, no one would ask where it came from." My chest tightened. "So you knew," I said. She didn't answer. That silence was the confirmation. "You could have asked," I said. "You could have credited me. We could have done it together." Her voice cracked. "They wouldn't have published it if it wasn't my name." There it was. Fear. I realized then that Lorraine hadn't stolen from me out of malice. She'd stolen because she was afraid of becoming invisible, the same fear she had passed on to me. "I'm not stopping," I said quietly. "Not now." Her eyes hardened. "Then neither am I." 2 days later, her publisher filed a formal lawsuit, claiming defamation, claiming loss of revenue, claiming I was capitalizing on her name. I cried that night. Not because I regretted anything, but because fighting someone you once loved feels like tearing muscle from bone. Caleb called me close to midnight. "Odessa," he said gently. "Are you ready for this to get ugly?" I looked around my kitchen, at the notebook on the counter, at the videos queued up, at the line of people still waiting outside. "Yes," I said, because this wasn't just about recipes anymore. It was about ownership, about voice, about refusing to be erased. And tomorrow, I was going to release the video Lorraine never expected anyone to see, the one that proved where everything began. I posted the video at 6:03 a.m., not midnight, not during peak hours. I wanted it to feel intentional, like a quiet truth dropped into a loud world. The thumbnail was simple. Me, a milk crate, a stove older than me. The title read, "Where These Recipes Actually Came From." I didn't add commentary at first. The video opened with raw footage from 12 years ago. Grainy, unfiltered, unmistakable. A 13-year-old me stood in my grandmother's kitchen, stirring roux with an oversized wooden spoon. Lorraine's voice floated in from behind the camera. "Slow down, Odessa. Don't rush it." The timestamp sat clearly in the corner. The video kept going. Different kitchens, different apartments, different versions of me. Older, steadier, more confident. Each clip tied directly to a recipe in Lorraine's book. Same words, same techniques, same personal stories. But now they were anchored in time. By 8 a.m., the video had crossed 500,000 views. By 10, national outlets started calling. I didn't answer all of them. I answered one. A morning show producer asked, "What do you want from all this?" I paused. "I want acknowledgement," I said, "and I want my work back." That afternoon, the lawsuit shifted. Lorraine's publisher amended their filing quietly. They removed the claim that I was fabricating evidence. That alone told me everything. But Lorraine wasn't done. She released a video of her own. She sat in a well-lit kitchen, makeup perfect, voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt my niece," she said. "These recipes are part of our shared history." Shared. Always that word. But the comments weren't on her side anymore. People posted screenshots, comparisons, clips from my video beside pages from her book. Truth is patient, and it waits. Milk Crate became impossible to manage. The line wrapped around the block. Strangers hugged me. Some cried. One woman whispered. My mother took credit for my work too. At night, when the doors finally closed, I felt hollow again. Because winning doesn't erase grief. It just makes room for it. Then Lorraine called. This time I answered. "Odessa," she said softly. "We need to talk." We met at my grandmother's old house, the one that smelled like dust and nutmeg. She sat across from me at the table where everything had begun. "I'll credit you," she said, "in the next print run." I waited. "And?" I asked. "And I'll donate part of the proceeds." It wasn't enough. "You don't get to keep the story," I said. "Not anymore." Her hands trembled. "They'll forget me," she said. I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel small. "Then tell your own story," I said. "But stop telling mine." Silence filled the room. Finally, she nodded. 2 weeks later, the settlement went public. The cookbook would be revised. My name would appear as co-author, and Milk Crate would be featured, not erased. But there was one more thing I hadn't told anyone yet. Milk Crate wasn't temporary. I signed the lease that morning. As the city buzzed around me, I unlocked the door and stepped inside my kitchen. Not borrowed, not shared. Mine. The morning after I signed the lease, I woke up exhausted. Not the good kind, not the earned kind. The kind that sinks into your bones after adrenaline finally lets go. Milk Crate was no longer a pop-up. It was real, which meant expectations. Permits, payroll, people depending on me. I stood alone in the kitchen before opening, fingers resting on the counter, and for the first time since all of this began, I felt afraid again. Not of Lorraine, of myself. Because revenge is loud. But building something honest is quiet and heavy. The press kept calling. Some wanted the scandal. Others wanted the empowerment angle. One producer said, "You're an inspiration." I didn't feel like one. I felt like a woman who lost half her family in exchange for her name. Lorraine hadn't called since the settlement. Her silence felt intentional, like a door closed carefully so it wouldn't slam. One afternoon, my cousin Nadine showed up. She hovered near the doorway, unsure. "Can we talk?" she asked. We sat at a corner table while the lunch rush buzzed around us. "Aunt Lorraine isn't okay," she said. "She says you took everything from her." I stared at my hands. "I didn't take anything," I said. "I took myself back." Nadine nodded slowly. "I think," she said, "she doesn't know who she is without being admired." That sentence stayed with me, because I understood it more than I wanted to. That night, after closing, I filmed something new. Not evidence, not defense. A confession. I talked about grief, about standing on milk crates, about loving someone who still hurt you. I posted it without a title. Just my face, my voice. The response was different. Quieter, deeper. People shared their own stories. Mothers, mentors, sisters. Patterns repeating. I realized then that this story had grown bigger than food. It was about ownership of self. 2 weeks later, the revised cookbook hit shelves. My name was there. Smaller than Lorraine's, but undeniable. I held it in my hands and felt nothing. No triumph, no rage, just distance. Milk Crate thrived. Not explosively, sustainably. Regulars learned my name. I learned theirs. One night, as I wiped down the counter, I found the old notebook tucked beneath the register. Grease-stained, soft with age. I opened to the first page. My grandmother's handwriting. Don't let anyone rush your story, I smiled. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Odessa. It's Lorraine. I need to tell you something, please. I stared at the screen. Some endings don't end cleanly. Some truths still simmer. And I knew, before I even replied, that this wasn't over yet. I didn't reply to Lorraine's message right away. I closed the restaurant that night slower than usual, wiping the same counter twice, checking locks I knew were secure. Delay has a way of pretending it's control. At home, I sat on my bed and read the message again. I need to tell you something. Not apologize, not explain. Tell. That word carried weight. I typed, deleted, retyped. Tomorrow, after lunch service. Her reply came instantly. Thank you. We met the next afternoon at a small park by the river, far from Milk Crate, far from memory-heavy kitchens. Lorraine sat on a bench, hands folded in her lap. She looked smaller, not broken, just unguarded. I'm sick, she said without easing into it. The words landed softly, too softly. What? I asked. Early stages, she continued. Manageable. But it made me think. I didn't know what to do with that information. Illness doesn't erase harm, but it complicates anger. I didn't steal from you because I hated you, she said. I stole because I was scared. I stayed quiet. When your grandmother died, Lorraine said, everyone stopped looking at me. You were the future. I was the past. That was the truth I hadn't known. Fear had been fermenting for years. I convinced myself I was preserving something, she said. But I was preserving myself. I finally spoke. You could have asked me, I said. You could have trusted me. She nodded, eyes wet. I didn't think you'd say yes. That hurt more than the theft, because it meant she never believed in me as a partner, only as a resource. We sat in silence, the river moving steadily beside us. I don't need forgiveness today, she said. I just didn't want to disappear without telling you the truth. I looked at her and realized this wasn't a victory lap. It was a reckoning. I won't protect you from consequences, I said. But I won't lie about you either. She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for years. That night, I returned to Milk Crate and cooked alone. No music, no audience, just muscle memory and heat. I filmed it, not for proof, not for exposure, for myself. As I plated the last dish, I understood something clearly. Revenge had been the spark, but creation was the fire, and the fire was mine to tend. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Caleb. Odessa, we found something in Lorraine's early drafts. A contract clause you should see. I stared at the screen. Some truths arrive late, and some change everything once they do.